And in this world here, in this particular chapter here, we have a picture of how God made a way for the wickedness at this time in the world to escape the judgment to come. So I want to fill you in on what the conditions were like, humanly speaking and worldly speaking. As far as the world created, they've never seen rain. From the time of God made the world, he did not intend it to rain. Rain came later. When he created the earth, there was a canopy around the world. This canopy was a water-filled canopy, and it was there to keep the conditions and the earth perfect, oxygen perfect, environment perfect. Everything he made was good. This is the genealogy of Noah, and that's important. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. So, in other words, Noah had justice in his heart. He desired to have righteous judgment, righteous justice. He knew God in a personal way, because it says here that Noah walked with God. That term means essentially that when you walk, there's a verse that says, can two walk together unless they agree? That's in Amos 3:3. The idea of walking together is walking with a person, or here in this case, a God, that will communicate and they can have a dialogue with. They agreed upon. And I imagine God would be the one that would do most of the speaking. Then Noah would be the one doing most of the listening. And it wasn't God and Noah arguing as they walked together. It was a relationship. That they walked and talked and agreed and had a relationship. I imagine Noah had a bazillion questions. Why did you have to kill the animal? Why was that sacrificed? What's the story from Adam? What's happening in this world? Why is everybody so corrupt? And that's probably the similar questions that we get today in the world. Why is the world so wicked? God, why don't you step in here? Stop the wickedness. And that's so common when I talk to people who don't know Jesus Christ. They're always talking about, well, if God is so powerful, why can't he stop all the wickedness in this world? The wickedness is a result of the sin, just like in the beginning of the fall in the garden of Adam and Eve. That's where the wickedness started, and it hasn't stopped since. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 10, and Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And we're going to get more into the sons of Noah in another time, another video. What it does tell us, though, about the earth's condition in verse 11, the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Of all the things that they were doing wrong, of all the wickedness that happened, it came to the point where the earth was filled with violence, that God had to execute judgment on the earth. And he would do that, as we're going to see in a minute. But don't you think if you looked at this world today and you would see all the violence on the news, the shootings and killings, and that somebody picks up a gun and goes to a high school and shoots all the kids? Then you see World War II and you have Hitler who killed 6 million Jews. Don't you think that God is going to judge them? So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. Over the years and through corruption, the fall of man kind of ruined the opportunity to enjoy the perfection. So God created everything good, we messed up. As far as man goes, mankind, and God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Notice how he repeats once again, violence. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And he has every right to, because he created it. He created the earth in order that mankind could have a relationship with him. We'll watch violence in movies and video games as our entertainment, yet God hates it. I want to give an example of my own experience. My dad went to the World War II. He had to kill people. Did he want to? No. But there was so much violence that he would never talk about the war to me. I was a young boy and I wanted to know, Dad, did you ever kill anybody? And he said, well, yeah. Have you ever... But, he embarrassingly said, well, I killed people too. I was scared. He got wounded. He survived, and I'm glad he survived. But he would never talk about the war for the reason that it was violent, people were killed, and it was a real thing. And so he's going to use Noah. It says, make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Gopher wood is a material. I'll read the rest of the verse here. Makes rooms in the ark and covered inside and outside with pitch. Well, let's talk about what the ark was made of. It was made of gopher wood. This wood would either be two things. There's two thoughts. There was a type of wood that would be incredibly versatile. The other thought is that gopher wood be a process of what they did to a type of wood, like teak or other type of wood, and it would be buried and it would be made in a certain way with certain materials that they would have had then that would strengthen the wood. But whatever the gopher wood was, they were aware of this type of wood, that this wood would last a long time. Think about it. In the Old Testament, the early times, in this time, they would live to be 900 years old. If you built a house, you want it to last a long time. Maybe this gopher wood was a common material at the time. We don't know. But we know one thing, that this ark was made with gopher wood. And gopher wood was meant to last for an incredible long time, more than any wood that we have today. And it would be covered with pitch, which is kind of like a tar-like material, both inside and out, to strengthen the ark, to ensure no water can come in or out. But what is sure is that that ark was made to survive the floods of the world. And the belief is that people spot the ark sometime. The ark is here, the ark is there, and you kind of think, well, how can wood survive all these years? Some believe that 6,000 years later that we can still see the ark. And it's quite possible because it was made with gopher wood. And so we don't know where exactly it is. There's some say it's on Mount Ararat, and there's some say it's another place. Wherever it is, it could be that the ark could be revealed in the last time to prove the truth about the Noah's Ark, that God did judge the world. We got to think about the conditions of the time. When God created the earth in the garden, there was no rain. Dew would come up from the ground and water the grass and water the trees and water all these things from beneath. And they didn't know what it was like to be raining. It never rained. And there was a canopy above the earth of water. And how that really sat up there, maybe it was something that was invisible. It wouldn't stop the rays from seeing sun. It would be like a cloudy day every day. It would look clear, yet at the same time it would protect them from the rays from the sun that would be damaging to their bodies. Verse 15, and this is how you shall make it. And now here it gives an exact description of how the ark is. God is very specific. He lays out everything in the Bible for us to know. And so we can actually draw conclusions of what the ark would look like. So the length of the ark would be 300 cubits, and the width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Those cubics, as far as measurements today, we don't use those measurements anymore. Cubic would be often measured from the tip of the finger to the elbow, I believe. But the volume of that, the ark itself would be close to 4,500 cubic meters. That's a lot. The key is that it would be a large enough boat or raft, as a friend of mine puts it very clearly, that would be floating in the water without controls. God would be the one who controlled the boat. It would be large enough to fill a multitude of animals. It would be constructed in a way that would be traveled with many different animals and man as well. And an open door for them to go in. Verse 16, you shall make a window for the ark. You shall finish it to a cubit from above, and set the door of the ark in its side, and you shall make it lower, a second and third deck. So there's 3 decks. There's a life-size replica of Noah's Ark. I know a number of people who went to see the life-size replica. It's in Williamstown, Kentucky. And what they tried to do is build it around the instructions of the Bible. I'm going to read this. A life-size replica of Noah's Ark, built from wood, exists in the U.S. at the Ark Encounter theme park in Williamstown, Kentucky. It was built under the assumption that a long or royal cubic was used that measured 20.4 inches, which is 51.8 centimeters. The huge replica stretches 510 feet, 155 meters long by 85 feet, which is 26 meters, I'm rounding off, wide, and 51 feet, which is 15.5 meters high. And that's what they used. So the total volume of Noah's Ark with an 18-inch cubic was roughly 1.5 million cubic feet, or 42,475 cubic meters. It says this is the equivalent total capacity of more than 570 standard stock cars used on a typical railroad. Its floor space divided over 3 decks would total over 101,000 square feet, which is 5,383 square meters. This is more floor space than 21 standard college basketball courts. That's huge. Now, it would hold, or it would displace 22,000 tons of water in the water. So we're looking at a pretty big ship here. And you can do your own search if you like. But we're talking about a ship. We're not a floating ship that has no controls other than God. And behold, I myself, being God, and bringing flood waters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh, in which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. He's bringing flood waters. That was something totally new. But I will establish my covenant with you, speaking to Noah, and you shall go into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. He's going to establish a covenant, a promise to him. Noah will have this promise that if you go into the ark, which he will, because he knows Noah will be obedient to God, and that's why he chose him as the one, because he recognizes that Noah was walking with God. He knows the relationship that they had, and he knows also that Noah would know to go into the ark. You and your sons, your family, your whole household. Your sons, your wives with you. That doesn't mean that they're all saved, as in believing in God, but Noah was a believer in God, and as a result, he would be allowed to have his family go into the ark. God wants you to be saved. He does not want judgment to come, yet because mankind does not listen to God and continues to be violent, continues to disobey and reject God, he has to do something. He is doing something, but he cannot force you into heaven. He isn't going to grab you by the scruff of the neck and say, come into heaven with me against your will. He's not. His desire is that he is willing that no one should perish, that all may come to repentance. And that includes you. We have evidence of the flood, and I believe the countries and the continents and the islands in the world are a result of the flood. If you ever played in the sand as a little kid, you take a bucket of water and you pour it, and it creates a stream that goes back into the lake. And it also creates layers, because as it goes down slower, it creates layers, and some of the things settle on the bottom. Well, when there's a massive flood throughout the whole world, this water's got to run off when the earth is shedding of its water. There is evidence that those fossils has to have a catastrophic event to be created. And we're going to see how that's done. 19. And of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. So here we have the common thing, the Sunday school picture book, where we should see 2 by 2 going into the ark. To keep them alive with you, both male and female, in order so that they are able to breed and populate the earth again after this whole flood is done. 2 of every sort. In other words, there would be 2 giraffes, 2 elephants. They wouldn't be taking in the whole different species, because you have 2 dogs, but there wouldn't be like 2 German shepherds, 2 collies, 2 beagles. There would be only 2. The species of different kinds would be still dogs, but maybe just a different breed. But they're all from the same kind. God made sure that these animals that he created at the beginning would be preserved to make it through the flood and be able to repopulate the earth after the flood. Verse 20. Of the birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, and of every creeping thing of the earth after its kind, 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. There's clarification. 2 birds of their kind doesn't mean 2 birds of every breed or every different type, like a sparrow, a swallow, an eagle. No, it'd be 2 birds after their kind. Animals after their kind. Same thing as I just described about dogs, etc. Every creeping thing on the earth after its kind. 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. Keep them alive in order to repopulate the earth after the flood is done. Verse 21. And you shall take for yourself of all food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. So it was probably that they gathered grain, gathered food. Before this, mankind was not eating animals. Flesh eating was not. They were vegetarians before this, so it'd be easy to collect the nuts, the fruit, the whatever it might be, for them to make a storage area, and they would use that for food. So they could fit that in the ark. They could collect that. It wouldn't be really controversial, especially the size of the ark and the floors that were made. Thus Noah did. According to all God commanded him, so he did. Noah did exactly as God said. Noah walked with God. He knew who God was. They had a relationship. And he obeyed God because he knew who God was. The almighty, powerful God who could wipe away and do as he said, who can create, who can give life, but he also has mercy. He also is a judge. He is judgment. And the great flood is what we're going to experience now.